So I totally messed up this first portion of this video. We are talking about Tyrese Gibson and this Home Depot lawsuit. Add this in at the beginning to cover up my big mess up. We're going to go over the California law that he is basing this lawsuit on. But before we do that, let's pop over to this video that he shared. I guess it was shared on TikTok, and I couldn't really see the credits there, but we're going to pop over to this video that shows a portion of what happened, not the whole thing, but we're going to listen to this conversation that he's having. And part of what he's talking about is this policy. And I think that's a really big thing to pay attention to, because he keeps focusing on the policy. What is the policy? Did you apply the policy to me differently because the other employee applied the policy this way and let me leave the store with candy bars, but you did something entirely different? And it seemed like that happened to be the case when it was my other employees. So he's alleging discriminatory application of a policy, and that they were treated differently. But let me go ahead and hit the play button.
The transaction, because regardless of who I am, I don't like getting attention. And I just started seeing people looking, and I was like, let me go ahead and work my way out. They've been coming here working with me. They work with me. I don't treat anybody less than. I treat everybody with respect. They've been working with me for 10 years. I have not been in this store in probably 6 years. So I'm asking the supervisor, who won't give me her last name, what is the store policy that you have in place that you're supposed to implement, where I'm able to scan 2 candy bars and walk outside without my ID and without paying for it? And he let me leave. And I'm calling you on FaceTime to say, if you have an ID problem and I don't have a pro account, you're looking at me on FaceTime and I'm telling you it's me. And then you're saying the policy is I got to come in here and show my ID. So why did your coworker let me leave with 2 candy bars with no ID and I didn't swipe a credit card? If that's your policy, that's what I'm asking. If that's your policy, I'm asking you. I don't work here. I'm asking you, what is your policy? This is a reflection of you. Swipe my card to pay for it. And he let me.
All right, we'll stop there. And part of this too, to think about again, he's asking her specifically these questions. We can't really hear, I couldn't really hear what her response was. And the gentleman there in the middle, it doesn't sound like he had anything to really contribute. I'm not sure if he was a supervisor. I should go back and read up on the background behind the video. But just breaking it down from what we're watching here, he is actually talking about whether or not this policy is being applied differently to different people or in different circumstances. And why is that the case? What is the policy? What is the policy? And I think that that's what they're going to be used in this lawsuit, if they make it to court, if they make it to this jury trial. But let's go back and bring back up this lawsuit now so that we can take a look at that. Let's see if I can find that. All right, so we have this lawsuit here, and let me scroll back to the beginning because I was actually having some issues with this. And let me just go ahead and admit I had to re-record. This is my second recording of this. I can't even claim the first time. The first time I had an audio issue. The second time I never hit record. You just don't understand what it's like trying to do these videos and talk about things and the issues that you run into just when you're trying to do it. Okay, this is coming out of the county of Los Angeles. They are demanding a jury trial here. Let's go over the plaintiffs. You have Tyrese Gibson, Eric Moore, and Manuel Hernandez. And then on the defendant side, you have the Home Depot, a Delaware corporation, and Doe's 1 through 10. Parties not specifically named here. They may not have a full accounting of the full names of those parties. This is likely going to be employees that may have been involved in what happened that day. So you see, a complaint for, and you've got a violation of a Civil Rights Act, and this is a California act here, and then also negligent hiring, supervision, and or retention. And it sounds like what they're saying here is, hey, you shouldn't have hired these people. They don't know what they're doing. Hey, you did not properly supervise these people. Otherwise, they would not have been engaging in discrimination, and or you retained people who couldn't do their jobs without discrimination or something like that. So this is sort of me framing that negligent hiring, supervision, and or retention piece. And you see the demand there for jury trial. Let's go ahead and jump right into the introduction. I will go ahead and tell you, these paragraphs are really long. I'm not a person who is a fan of long paragraphs. Home Depot reported 160 billion in annual sales in 2022. That's a lot of money. And can I say that they got some of my money too? Despite the company's runaway success, discriminatory mistreatment and consumer racial profiling persist in its stores. Gibson, one of the most recognizable Black actors and musicians in the United States, and his associates, Craftsman, Mora, and Hernandez, experienced outrageous discriminatory mistreatment and consumer racial profiling firsthand inside the Home Depot retail store in West Hills, California on February 11th, 2023. Let me stop there for a second because, putting this piece in here about this Gibson, one of the most recognizable Black actors, that's part of the story. Because remember, in the video, we just saw what he said was, I felt like people were starting to recognize me and I wasn't into all that. Let me insert a thought here. Sometimes we think that just because parties or actors or actresses, and just because they're all on social media, just because they're in parties, just because paparazzi are constantly taking pictures, or maybe they're doing interviews to promote something that they're working on, maybe it's a movie or a new product or service that they've got out there, that doesn't necessarily mean they want to be, bombarded with people trying to take pictures or get their autograph just because they're in Home Depot or sitting in a restaurant or hanging out at the gas station pumping gas. Sometimes they just want to live their lives and not have to do any of that. And yes, a lot of them understand that that comes with the job, but that doesn't mean when you walk into Home Depot, that you want to have the public eye all on you. And yeah, sometimes that's just not a thing for people. But they get it. It comes with the job, though. It comes with the job. While plaintiffs attempted to make an in-store purchase, store clerks purposely interfered with and refused to process the transaction based on their groundless suspicion of Gibson, Mora, and Hernandez, arising from their skin color, and in the case of Mora and Hernandez, their national origin as well. Home Depot has refused to take any responsibility for discriminating against Gibson, Mora, and Hernandez, or to acknowledge the pain, humiliation, and anguish caused by the company. Instead, the Home Depot doubled down, lawyered up, and treated Gibson, Mora, and Hernandez, and what happened to them is not worthy of any due consideration, instead inferring that they are the problem. In short, the Home Depot invited this civil rights lawsuit. This is the absolute height of hypocrisy for a company that disingenuously promotes itself to the world as, quote, an environment of mutual respect that is free of harassment and discrimination, and that, quote, protects discrimination or harassment on the basis of race, religion, creed, color, national origin, unquote, to engender favor with the public and shareholders. Let me stop here. It's likely that they went to the Home Depot's website, I'm not going to do this, to pull this up to say, hey, it promotes itself to the world as, and this is likely where this information came from. Paragraph 3, Gibson, Mora, and Hernandez are taking a stand against the Home Depot to hold it accountable. The company needs to understand that there are consequences for discriminatory mistreatment and consumer racial profiling. Plaintiffs are committed to doing their part to advance civil rights and put an end to the despicable practice of discriminatory mistreatment and consumer racial profiling at Home Depot and, by extension, all retail stores. There was one other thing I wanted to say here too. This piece where they said, this piece where it says what happened to them is not worthy of any due consideration and instead invited the civil rights lawsuit. It makes you wonder what happened prior to them filing the lawsuit, because a lot of times parties will reach out, a party who has harmed or who has received some sort of treatment will have their attorney reach out to the other party to try to come to some sort of resolution. So a lot of times we don't get that sort of backstory about what happened leading up to the lawsuit. For instance, we'll have the incident, but it's like, okay, so what kind of letters were sent? What kind of calls were made? Did the parties really try to work something out? What did the other party say that this party finally said, it doesn't look like they're going to try to work with us on anything. We're just going to have to go to court. It does make you wonder what was going on behind the scenes prior to them actually reaching the point where they are in court ready. They're at the courthouse now filing something. So let's take a look at this actual California law and talk about what it says in here, because this is what they are relying on mostly, in addition to that negligent hiring, supervision, and retention piece. It says the Civil Rights Act, and this is sections 51 and 52 of this act, provides protection for all persons within the jurisdiction of California from arbitrary and intentional discrimination by all California business establishments. It provides all persons, this is quote, all persons within the jurisdiction of the state are free and equal, and no matter what their sex, race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, medical condition, genetic information, marital status, sexual orientation, citizenship, primary language, or immigration status, are entitled to the full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, privileges, or services in all business establishments of every kind whatsoever. And then it goes down to section 52 provides whoever denies, aids, or incites a denial or makes any discrimination or distinction contrary to section 51 is liable for each and every offense of the actual damages and any amount that may be determined by a jury or a court sitting without a jury up to a maximum of 3 times the amount of the actual damages and any attorney's fees. All right, so then you see it also says 52 also authorizes any person aggrieved by conduct of resistance to the full enjoyment of any of the rights described in this section. They can request preventive relief, including an application for a permanent or temporary injunction, restraining order, or other order, as complainant deems necessary to ensure the full enjoyment of the rights described in this section. It says this act it was created to preserve a non-discriminatory environment in California business establishments by banishing and eradicating arbitrary, invidious discrimination by such establishments. And you see some of the cases that are cited there. The act stands as a bulwark protecting each person's inherent right to a full and equal access to all business establishments. This is a business establishment's unequal race-based treatment of its customers is unlawful under the act, even if its customers are not denied services. So it's, you can walk into an establishment and be treated in a discriminatory manner and still receive services. And you've probably heard some of these instances where people have said, I came in before table B, and yet table B has received all of their food and dessert, and we're still waiting to have our order taken. And then they may go through some other things that happened that may have indicated to them that it was based on discrimination. And so, in that case, they had not even received services yet. But this is saying, even if you're not denied services, even if you received the same services, but it was somehow discriminatory in the way it was provided. So it says this is true whether the discriminatory treatment is verbal, physical, or financial. Thus, in the context of alleged racial discrimination, the dispositive question under the act is whether the plaintiff faced unequal treatment on account of his or her race that members of the other race did not experience. Unlawful actions. The pain and humiliation experienced by Gibson, Moore, and Hernandez at the West Hills store on February 11, 2023 must be remedied in a court of law. And then you have the parties in the jurisdiction. Tyrese actually resides in Fulton County, Georgia. Moore and Hernandez are residents of Los Angeles, County, of Los Angeles County. And then Home Depot is a Delaware corporation authorized to do business in the state of California. Then you have this piece about these other does 1 through 10, and it says plaintiffs will amend this complaint to allege the true names and capacities of such fictitiously named defendants when their names and capacities have been ascertained. And this may be some of those employees who were there at the time. But remember, like he said in the video, the one person that he was talking to did not provide her last name. And in most cases, pretty much any store that you go into, they don't provide employees' last names and they're not obligated to do so. So, going through this legal process will give them the ability to be able to do that. And then they talk about these other people as defendants. So then they say, at all times, the defendants acted in concert, conspired, and agreed among themselves to commit the wrongful acts. And this again could be, going back to this policy that may be discriminatory on its face or in its application, but they're saying all of the parties know about this policy or what's going on or the mistreatment, and that they are continuing forward with it. And then you have, of course, that they're in LA County. So in another video, I'm going to jump into the facts so that we can see what was going on. But I'm gonna save that for another video, because number one, I need something to drink, and number two, these videos start to get a little long. And like I said, that paragraph was really long, and now this video, those paragraphs, actually it was multiple paragraphs that were really long. But this helps us understand the law that they are using. This California Civil Rights Act, Section 51 and Section 52, one that lays out the actual discrimination, the other that talks about the remedies to some extent. So there you have it. Hopefully this brings you up to speed and understanding a little bit about the law that they are using to file this lawsuit against Home Depot. If that helps you understand, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. All right, peace.